Well, this week in my Sunday sermon, I've got to focus on lawless Britain. Because I think we're at the stage where, frankly, we the British people, need to say, enough is enough. We've seen the horrific triple murder in Nottingham. 3 families utterly devastated, lives ruined. 2 of the victims just entering adulthood, a life ahead of them, just 19 years old. Bright futures snuffed out by someone with a huge knife. And this almost just a few days after the attempted murder of young children in prams in Annecy in France. Again, a man with a large knife. What is going on? Where have all these large knives come from? I don't recall this 10 years ago. Do you? So let's just look at some statistics, shall we, in England and Wales as to what really is going on. Last year, 50,000 serious offences with knives. That's almost double a decade ago. So I'm not wrong when I say I don't recall this 10 years ago to this degree. Fatalities using knives are well up, a record, almost 300 last year. But no surprise, prosecutions are down. Just 4 in 10 get some form of caution, fine or custodial sentence. In fact, a custodial sentence is just 1 in 10. That's the lowest for some 8 years. So it's quite clear that the crimes are going up, but the sentencing, the prosecutions, are going down. And therefore the leniency is going up. We've got more suspended sentence than ever before. Record high. So that's surely the proof we're getting more lenient. So is it a coincidence that the more lenient we get, then the more knife crime there seems to be? Why? Because the perpetrators clearly don't fear the consequences. It's not a deterrent. And it's not just adults being stabbed. Young children, for God's sake, are being stabbed. 4% of young people in the United Kingdom are now carrying a knife at least once a year, very often frequently during the year. But 4%, that's almost 1 in 20. I just don't recall this a decade or 2 decades ago. Gun crime last year up some 50%. Car theft up 30%. There's no deterrent. There's no fear of the consequences. And I have to tell you, I'm absolutely sick to death of this, to the core of my stomach and beyond. I've had enough, and I want to hear from you. Have you had enough of this? I think the vast majority of the British people have had enough. And it's quite obvious. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. The deterrent isn't working. And the definition of madness is to keep on doing the same thing and expect a different result. It's not working. We've got to change something. And it's not good enough for the usual politicians from all sides in the Houses of Commons and the House of Lords to say, oh, isn't it terribly shocking? It's shocking. But then do nothing about it. If it ain't working, folks, accept it and change it. I want a plan, and I'm not hearing a plan from them, so I'm going to give you my own plan. I'm going to create a proper deterrent. Let's discuss it. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it'll be a lot better than anything I've heard from anybody else so far. My plan is that anybody who carries or uses a knife will regret it. I'd build thousands of places in detention centres in somewhere that's really cold, unpleasant and inhospitable. Maybe a remote Scottish island or some of the most remote parts of the Falkland Islands, for example. I'd give the nation 2 months for a knife amnesty. Give your knife in then and that's it, there's an amnesty. But after that, dramatically, I mean dramatically, increase stop and search by police, and they have videos body cams so you can check whether it's being done properly and fairly. But across towns and cities and villages up and down the country, let's have a massive stop and search programme. And anybody caught carrying a knife, after that 2-month amnesty, you are going to regret it. You'd be taken off the street immediately. No ifs, no buts, no passing go on the Monopoly board. You go straight to detention. You're tried and charged in a week. And you get 5 years, no remission, no ifs, no buts, just for carrying a knife. 5 years. Yes, we can do the rehabilitation during that period, but you are going to spend 5 years in a cold, inhospitable, unpleasant place. 5 years, just for carrying a knife. You don't need to carry a knife. I've recently been to Dubai. You don't see loads of people carrying a knife there. Crime there. People don't even lock the door there because there's a deterrent, because they respect the law. They respect the fact that they're most likely to be caught. So there you are, you get 5 years just for carrying. If you use a knife, 1 stab, 10 years, no remission. Again, no ifs, no buts, no excuses. I don't want any waffle, 10 years. If you stab someone twice, that's 20 years. A murder is life, no remission. Bang. I tell you what, if you carry a knife, you will regret it. No one else is talking like this. Why not, for heaven's sake? 2 kids, young adults, age 19, dead because of this. Nonsense. Because it's utter failure, utter woeful failure of our politicians and the leaders of our police force and of our justice authorities to get a grip on this situation. And the lefties will wring their hands and they'll say, oh, Tice is being obscene. No, I'm not. I'm just being tough. Why should we pay for legal aid for these murderers? They can pay themselves if they want a defence for the indefensible. I don't want our taxpayers' cash used for it, for heaven's sake. That's how you create a proper deterrent. Unless you're a chef at work in the kitchen, I can't see any reason to carry a knife. Full stop. Maybe if you're a barman opening some wine bottles in the bar, fine. You need a bottle opener that might have a little knife at the end of it to open the top. But otherwise, there is no reason to carry a knife on our streets. No knives equals no murders. That's my view. What this might do, it might take 5,000 to 10,000 knife-carrying thugs and scum off our streets. I don't want them on our streets. I don't think you want them on our streets. I don't think the majority of the British people want these knife-carrying thugs on our streets. And it goes further than this, because it goes all the way down society, down to the lowest levels of antisocial behaviour. We know that much of the knife crime, of course, is related to the drugs trade. The drugs trade is soaring. And much of the theft and the burglary that goes on is to basically to fund people's drug habits. 300,000 people addicted to heroin and crack cocaine. Police recorded offences on drugs going down because they're sort of beginning to accept it. And yet the truth is, in our towns and cities, London, you've never smelt so many drugs. Again, there's no deterrent. No deterrent whatsoever. I mean, in the same way that we've got open borders for legal and illegal immigration, you've basically got open door to drug dealing. And of course, knife crime violence is so linked to the drugs gangs, the violent gangs. But it goes down even to antisocial behaviour like shoplifting, roaming gangs, just sort of drifting into shops, nicking a whole load of stuff, no deterrent, no fear of being prosecuted. Brazenly, during the day, shoppers standing there watching. 20 years ago, the shoppers would have stopped them, but now they won't. Why? Because they fear that they might be carrying a knife. It might be a long machete, and they might just lash out, and 1 or 2 stabs, and you're gone. That's why this deterrent is so important. It goes all the way down society. And it might sound petty, but when some guy rocks onto a train carriage with a boogie blaster raging out some dreadful music, dreadful blasting music. It's pretty selfish, pretty antisocial. But the reason no one on the carriage says, excuse me, would you mind awfully putting some headphones on so that the rest of us don't have to listen to your choice of music? The reason no one says anything is because we're terrified. They might be carrying a knife and they might give you a slash with it. So this has serious, ongoing consequences. 37% of adults last year experienced some form of antisocial behaviour. So it permeates throughout the whole of our life. I think the fear that people have that someone else is doing something daft on the streets, that they might be carrying a knife, I think it's having a dramatic effect on the quality of life for so many people in our villages, in our towns and our cities. Fear is beginning to permeate everywhere. And it's unacceptable because we, the vast, vast majority of decent, law-abiding, taxpayer citizens, we shouldn't have to put up with it. These are our streets. We pay the bills. We abide by the rules. I want the thugs off the streets. I want the knives off the streets. I want the drugs off the streets. I'd rather it done now. But okay, maybe let's have an amnesty for a couple of months whilst we build some detention centres. But I've got a plan, and I'm not hearing a plan from anybody else. Politicians elected in Westminster, what are they doing about it? Where's their plan? Have you heard it? I haven't heard it. It's not good enough. Young people leaving school, looking forward to the life ahead of them. Brilliant sports people. They deserve to be able to look forward to that. If you want to go to a club to celebrate your end of your exams or whatever, you want to have the confidence that you're going to get home at the end of the night. This is what it's about, folks. It's serious. This is our streets. It's our clubs. It's our right to enjoy ourselves as decent, law-abiding citizens. We don't want our streets ruled by fear. It's got to stop. And it's got to stop now. And here endeth my Sunday sermon.